So you may or may not be aware, but I'm aiming for 10k by the end of the year. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure that you do, because it's free, it'll help me out, and I'd love you forever. And all of those things I'm pretty sure are good things, so why the hell not? Hey guys, Winky here, and welcome to another episode of my... what do I call it? Oh, it's for the love of sci-fi, innit? That's what I put in the thumbnail, so fuck it, we'll go with that. This is the series where I talk about various different science fiction films and why I like them or love them, hence the title, For the Love of Sci-Fi. Now I've got to say, the one today, and I probably included this in the title somewhere, I think this is one of the most underrated films that I've seen for quite a while. I think there's some films where they come out and they just get this huge reaction and they are this like moment in cinema. But there's some films that I feel go under the radar somewhat. And whilst this film I don't necessarily think has been shat on over the years, I feel it's one of those films that is really kind of underrated, and it's one of those films that when you say to someone, oh, have you seen The Martian? They'll be like, oh yeah, that was pretty good actually. I found it a thoroughly enjoyable experience. It's not one of those movies that is like instant impact and like a cult classic straight away. It is definitely one of those films that people enjoy but then they forget about, whereas me, I think I'll probably come back to this film quite a few times. The thing that I really liked about it was that it felt different. Usually in a movie like this, like it's not an original movie really in a lot of ways. You know, people get stranded and they have to be saved or rescued or whatever, or can they even survive? But what I thought was quite refreshing, which I haven't really seen too much of in cinema, is the fact that what happens happens. Matt Damon's character gets stranded on Mars, and you would think that in that situation, regardless of how well trained you are, because at the end of the day you're only human, but most people would probably crack and just fall apart and give up. And I think I've seen that in quite a few films as well, where that would be the plot of the film. It's a character piece about how that character falls from grace and how they cope or don't really cope with the situation that they're actually in. Whereas with The Martian, pretty much from the get-go, it feels like Matt Damon is like, right, well, this is how I'm gonna survive. And the thing is, it does have those moments where, because like I say, he is only human, there are moments where he does somewhat crack and want to give up, and he does feel like he's not actually going to make it, and of course there's going to be hurdles and obstacles, and sometimes it'll look like, okay, he's on the right track, and then it'll be like, fuck, that's happened, so he's totally screwed now. And sometimes it is in an obvious and cliche, you can kind of see it coming way. Other times not so much, and I really did appreciate that, to be fair. I think Matt Damon, I mean actually the cast as a whole are fantastic in this, but the main focus is of course Matt Damon. This is very much his film, and I think he puts in a really great performance. You do really feel for this guy, but you also really admire him, because like I say, he does have that I'm not gonna die here, I'm gonna keep doing stuff type of attitude. And the thing is as well, usually in these type of films, it's someone who isn't that resourceful and they have to figure out how to survive, they have to figure out things for themselves. Whereas with this, Matt Damon, he already knows what he's doing, so what this film does is shows off how clever this guy actually is. There are quite a few moments in this film as well where it does kind of feel like a hooray moment, like when he first gets in touch with people. That was a moment that I was like, cool, now there's a chance. And I think deep down, you know that this movie is gonna go one of two ways. It's either gonna go happily ever after and he lives, or he's going to end up dying there. I think the sad part of this film, well, it's not really part of this film, it's kind of the reality of what would actually happen, and it is kind of mentioned in the film. If this scenario were to happen in real life, and there was an astronaut who was stranded, there is no way that NASA or the government would spend that much money on a ship or rocket, however you want to word it, to fly back and go and get them. You know for a fact that, well, they're just stuck there now. And I think there's times in this film where Matt Damon himself feels like that. I think him as a person is so determined to survive that I don't think it really comes to the forefront all that much, but there are a couple of moments where you do think like, there is a chance he isn't going to get off here, and he kind of realises it now. There's quite a bit of humour in this film as well that I didn't really expect, and it's not like laugh out loud comedy stuff, but there are some genuinely sweet, heartwarming, witty moments. The stuff with the potatoes, for example, like there's a bit where like he's recording to camera, sort of logging each day, and one of the days he says like, oh, you know, I'm eating a potato again, but it sucks because I'm out of ketchup. They could make it a flat out comedy or a flat out depressing thing, but they kind of found like a bit of a middle ground here. The cinematography as well, and some of the set designs and the special effects I think are actually pretty good as well. There's a scene where the rest of his crew, which is crewed by quite a few really good actors actually, you see that they are in space and you feel that they are in space. It's not like when you watch something like a Star Wars, like a Star Trek, where it's just clearly a set but there's space in the background. With this, you feel them traveling through space, and I thought that was really interesting. Like I said in the very first episode of this series, Space Odyssey is kind of Fox cinema, but you can see the influence such as that in this film. You know, feeling them in motion and spinning through space, and the fact that, you know, they're kind of walking around the spaceship. That's very Space Odyssey, but I like it. I've got time for it. Mars itself is really cool as well because it does feel like this hopeless, desolate land that it probably would. But you've also got this garden inside that he's growing for like his food and oxygen and all this sort of stuff, and the set design of that I think is actually really cool. The vehicles that he has on Mars as well at his disposal I think are pretty fucking awesome as well, and I would absolutely love to drive one. One thing I will say is though, there's moments in this film where I'm like, I don't really believe the science here. But listen, it's a science fiction film. Like, how many films, how many TV shows, comics, books, etc. you kind of have to accept that there's gonna be a few things that aren't quite right. Like, there's a bit where I think it's the top of a rocket that he's having to launch back into space to get rescued, and he puts over like a tarpaulin or something on top of it, and it's like, would that work? I don't know if that would. Listen, I'm not a rocket scientist. I don't know for definite if it would or wouldn't, but my instinct would say no, that probably wouldn't work and you're probably gonna die. Like I said as well, this is one of those films where it could go either way. I think in my head, I don't know why, but I just assumed it was gonna go wrong. It just kind of felt like because he had that get up and go, can do attitude, I'm gonna survive throughout the film, and then he slowly starts to break, I thought it might slowly go into a more somber tone, but it just kind of sticks with that tone, and it does end up with the happy ending, which I'm okay with. I mean, it is a little bit cheesy, it is a little bit Hollywood, but it isn't really against what else you've seen in the film. So whilst maybe the morbid side of me was like, let him fucking die, I'm also really happy that in the end he did get to live. Which is a spoiler, by the way, but then again, this film has been out for like 7 or 8 years, so is it that long or is it 2015? But either way, I've just ruined it for you if you haven't seen it, so I'm sorry about that. Either way, The Martian, whilst it's not like one of the greatest movies ever, I do really enjoy it, and I do think it's underrated, and I do love the performances in this film, and I love the tone, and I love that it does feel somewhat different to how most people would approach a movie like this. But in the comments below though, guys, let me know what you think. The Martian, do you like it? Do you not? Whatever it is, let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more, because I want more. I want 10k, as I keep saying, and I'm going to keep saying until I hit it. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description as always, so if you would follow me on any of those things, I'd absolutely love you forever. But until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.